And hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of First and 10, our NYVT Media Sports High School Football preview and review show. I'm your host, Keith Harrington, and it's time for another week of high school football, week number 2 coming up this Friday and Saturday. And we've got another game on tap that will be streaming live here at NYVT Media Sports, as we'll be in Ravenna as Ravenna Queens Selkirk takes on Averill Park in a Section 2 Class B matchup. And we'll be telling you more about that a little bit later on in the show. We're also going to have some players from the Granville-Whitehall football team joining us as well to talk about their win over Plattsburgh. But first, let's look back at week 1's action of high school football. And NYVT Media Sports was live at Ambrose Gilligan Field in Whitehall for the Granville-Whitehall season opener as they took on Section 7's Plattsburgh. And Granville-Whitehall came away with an impressive 30-6 win, making it back-to-back seasons that they've been able to take down the Hornets. Chad Monty, Chad Monty Jr., was our Lake Champlain Cole player of the game. CJ had 3 touchdowns, rushed for 225 yards in the win for Granville-Whitehall. Brandon Beaver also had a touchdown run for GW as they opened impressively, and the defense very, very impressive as they all but took the running game away from Plattsburgh, and one big pass play for the Hornets for their touchdown. But other than that, it was all Granville-Whitehall as they open 1-0 on the season. In a rematch of a regional playoff game from last year that went just about the same that last year's playoff game went, Greenwich over Mariah, 34-0. You know, I talked about it and I called it last week. The Witches lost a lot of key players from that team that went to the state semifinals, but yet they had 4 out of their 5 starters on the offensive line back, and they had their quarterback, Ryan Ingber, back. And whenever you have your quarterback and most of your offensive line returning, you can expect, especially in Class D, that you're going to have a really strong football team. And that proved to be the case, as Mariah had about as much luck against the Witches last weekend as they did in the state regionals last year, as Greenwich came away with a 34-0 win. I believe that's the same exact score, if memory serves me, that it was in last year's regional game. Speaking of Ryan Ingber, Ingber had 2 touchdown runs and threw 2 touchdown passes. Michael Cronin and Ethan Mullen had TD catches for the Witches. And it was Caden Bentley rushing for 62 yards and a touchdown for Greenwich as they beat Mariah in their season opener 34-0. It was Cambridge Salem actually defeating Hoosick Falls Tamarack 38-21. Abe Cushing, 150 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns for Cambridge Salem. Preston Peabody had 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Stephen Yakubek, 96 yards and a touchdown pass to lead Cambridge Salem. Ravenna opened the season with a win. Ravenna Queens Selkirk, we'll be seeing them this week, as I mentioned, against Averill Park in our game of the week here on NYVT Media Sports. They opened up with a 19-8 win on the road at Gloversville. It was Joseph Tuzin, 113 yards and a touchdown. Sophomore Johnny Jones had a touchdown. He ran for 107 yards. Mason Karkner had a touchdown pass. Joseph Foy, a touchdown catch for the Ravens. So an impressive start to the season for Ravenna Queens Selkirk. Cobleskill opened up on the road against Hudson Falls, and it was the Bulldogs with a 49-6 win. And they had an offense that had a lot of contributors in the game. Caden Cernoskis had 2 touchdown passes. Isaiah Butcher, 2 TD catches from Karnauskas. Also, Chase Henry with a 26-yard TD run. He blocked a punt also and got a score off of that blocked punt. Cam Jackson scored on a 30-yard run, and Anaj Faulkner had a fumble return for a touchdown as Cobleskill beat Hudson Falls 49-6. Coxsackie Athens they've had some lean years in football recently, but they opened up on a high note as they defeated Rensselaer-Loudonville Christian by a score of 32-8. And it was Tristan Canning with 129 yards passing and 3 touchdowns for Coxsackie Athens. Dantes Smith and Mason Morehouse had touchdown runs to help lead Coxsackie Athens over Rensselaer-Loudonville Christian 32-8 in their season opener. Kyle Scott had 2 TD catches for Coxsackie Athens, and Rich Perino also had a TD catch. A couple of other scores on the Vermont side of the border. Fairhaven falling to the Hartford Hurricanes. Hurricanes with a shutout victory. It's the first time those teams had played in something like 32 years. They used to be rivals and several times played in Vermont State Division II championship games in the past, but they played for the first time in, as I said, about 32 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was all Hurricanes as they come away with the 33-0 win. And the Poultney Blue Devils, they went on the road to take on the Crimson Tide of Spalding, and it was 39-7, the Crimson Tide coming away with the win, but Eric Kendall had a 3-yard touchdown run to lead the Blue Devils. That gets you up to date on last weekend's Week 1 high school football scores from around our area. When I come back, we're going to talk with CJ Monty and also some more of the players from the victorious Granville-Whitehall team, and we'll do that next. This is First and 10 on NYVT Media Sports. And welcome back to First and 10 on NYVT Media Sports. I'm your host, Keith Harrington. And joining me right now is CJ Monty of Granville-Whitehall Football, running back, linebacker,
Yeah.
and a good start this season. Last week, 30-6 over Plattsburgh in a non-league game. And you had quite a game. You had 3 touchdowns, 225 yards rushing, good game on defense. How'd you feel about that first game?
Well, it was we came out flat at first, first game of the year. We always come out flat. I don't know why, but we always do. And first half, we made way too much mistakes that we can't make going into this week. And then coming out the second half, everything clicked and those mistakes stopped, and we looked like a Section 2 championship team.
Right. So obviously high expectations this year for you guys. You just mentioned Section 2 championship. I know you were down in Georgia and had some chances down there, and Coach basically said you came back to win a championship.
Yeah, so I went down there. I got offered by a prep school to finish my senior year down there, and I called Coach and I told him, hey, I scored the first GW touchdown in program history, and I want to finish it with my friends and finish it with a Section 2 title.
And you got some great college opportunities coming your way. I already know you got a couple offers on the table.
Yeah, UAlbany is the biggest one. I'm still searching and looking for other schools, but if it comes down to if I go to UAlbany or if I go to some other school, it'll be great.
So your dad had a UAlbany shirt on at the game last Friday night, so I couldn't resist going over and give him a hard time. I go,
yeah.
Is this information for me? Is this a big scoop? Am I breaking the news right now or what? And he said, no, I just got the shirt for free, so I wore it to the game.
Yeah, no, I had an older brother who actually went to UAlbany for school.
Right.
So, it's my brother went to UAlbany, and he wants me to go terribly, terribly bad. So, it'd be cool if I go there.
Right. You talked a lot about your offensive line and what they did for you last week. You said, that they just did a great job opening things up for you.
Our offensive line it's a key to football. You can't win football games without an offensive line. I may make the paper all the time, but they're the ones who do that for me.
Right.
They put me in the end zone. They put me, 5, 10, 15 yards. So it's really all about the offensive lineman. I'm just here running.
And what do you know about Fonda? You got Fonda coming up tomorrow night on the road. Tough game.
Oh yeah, no, they're gonna be tough. We knew at the beginning of the season that they were gonna be tough, and if you want to be that Section 2 team, we got to beat the reigning, defending Section 2 team. So we've been preparing all week and all year for this team, and hopefully this could be not only a regular season matchup, but a Section 2 championship matchup.
All right. Well, good luck tomorrow night. Good luck with your college decision making.
Thank you.
And that's CJ Monty, everybody, on First and 10 here on NYVT Media Sports. Coming up next, we'll talk with Nathan Barber. right here on First and 10. Welcome back to First and 10 on NYVT Media Sports. I'm your host, Keith Harrington. Nathan Barber joining me now from Granville-Whitehall Football. And you're wearing a new jersey. You're wearing the former Tommy Barber number. Is that a number you wanted to have for any particular reason? Or?
I was just under the information that we didn't have 20, and I'm not a big numbers guy. I don't care what number I get. I'm just here to play.
So a big win over Plattsburgh last week. You guys got to be excited. 30-6, beat Plattsburgh 2 years in a row now. How'd you feel that game went?
I feel like we could have definitely done a lot better than we did, and we can't make the mistakes that we made against this team, against the next team that we're playing.
Yeah, the Fonda. What do you know about Fonda? You guys have probably been talking about them a little bit. A good team, obviously.
Fonda's a very good team, but I think that we found the key to beating them with our defense.
What's been the big difference here the last couple of years? I mean, the first couple of years, the merger, the first couple of years with Coach Gibo, and, things didn't go so well for GW football. And now you guys seem to be one family, one team, and you're winning playoffs last year, a playoff win. What's the difference, do you think?
I feel like the big difference was our coaching staff in the first year made it very hard for our team to succeed, even though we had a lot of talent. And as we've grown, as we've gotten bigger, we've started getting more connected with our Whitehall players. And it's hard to find a weekend when we're not with them or we're not hanging out together. And I guarantee that part of that has to do with the wrestling merge.
Right.
I definitely feel like that really helped us get along too.
Talking about wrestling, since you brought it up, you went out to North Dakota this year and had a great success out there during the summer. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was definitely a great experience. It always is. If you get the chance to ever go, I would always take it. It was pretty. There's no words for it.
They're good, right? There's a lot of talent out there.
Yeah, you can't go there and expect, all right, I'm going to get a couple easy wins here, and then I'll probably drop off. No, it's every match is a dogfight. You got to 100% all the time.
So, CJ was talking a little bit about you guys hope for a Class C title here in football. Would that be a big goal for a successful season?
Oh, that's my main goal right now. We play it game by game, but in the back of my mind's always, we're going to win this. We got it. And you got to have that mentality, or otherwise you're never going to do it.
Right, exactly. Well, good luck tomorrow night against Fonda Fultonville. I'll see you in football. I'll see you in wrestling. I'm sure I'll be seeing you a lot this year. So Nathan Barber from Granville-Whitehall Football joining us here. And we'll be right back with a look at this week's schedule of games here on First and 10 on NYVT Media Sports. And welcome back to First and 10 on NYVT Media Sports. I'm Keith Harrington. And to wrap up the show this week, let's take a look at the schedule that our local teams, our coverage area teams, are playing this weekend. And of course, we're going to start with the game we'll be streaming live here on Friday night as it's Ravenna, Queens, Selkirk, the Ravens, as they host Averill Park. Now, this is an interesting contest. Last year, Ravenna, Queens, Selkirk were 8-3 their first year under Eric Stott, their new head coach. Stott was an assistant coach who moved up to replace the retired Gary Vanderzee, legendary coach Gary Vanderzee, who won just tons of games at Ravenna, Queens, Selkirk. Three straight sectional titles in Class B for them. Averill Park, though, is the defending champion in Class A, and this year they are moving down to Class B. So should be a great game. You got a Class B power in Ravenna, Queens, Selkirk. You got the defending Class A champions who this year are playing in Class B. So it should be a great, great game. We look forward to bringing that your way on Friday night with kickoff at 7 o'clock right here on NYVT Media Sports. Also on the schedule, Granville-Whitehall will look to go to 2-0 on the season as they play a much tougher opponent this week. They hit the road to take on Fonda Fultonville. Fonda Fultonville, always a contender in Class C. So we'll get to know a little bit more about what that Granville-Whitehall team has when they take on Fonda Fultonville on Friday night. Also Friday night, the Schuylerville Black Horses, the defending Class C state champions, are on the road at Johnstown. Cambridge-Salem is at Warrior Stadium to take on Stillwater Spa Catholic. Kenna-Jahari comes to Greenwich to take on the 1-0 Witches. Mechanicville is at Cobleskill Richmondville. So we'll see if the Bulldogs get a little bit more of a test after a 49-6 win over a Hudson Falls team that was returning to high school football last year after having just JV football a year ago and is actually playing down in Class D this year. So we'll see if Mechanicville can give Cobleskill Richmondville a run for their money. Hudson, the Blue Hawks, are at Hoosick Falls Tamarack. So that is the Friday night slate. Also, on Saturday, this should be an interesting game. Rensselaer coming off a loss in their opener. Hudson Falls coming off a loss in their opener, and both of them were lopsided losses. The Running Rams will play at Hudson Falls, and this is an interesting game because both of these teams are not probably going to have a chance to win a lot of football games this year. This may be both teams' opportunity to get in the win column. One of them is obviously going to do it. So I think it's a big game for these two teams because, they're both programs that are struggling right now. They're not going to get a lot of W's this year. So this is the opportunity for both teams to get in the win column this year. Rensselaer at Hudson Falls on Saturday. Also, another game that I think is interesting to look at, Warrensburg Lake George is at the Blackbirds of Voorheesville. Of course, coming off a scandal-filled year a year ago where their season was cut short when they were 8-0 and ranked number 1 in the state and basically looking unbeatable at the time. Now they've got a new coach in John Irian, former coach at Queensbury, state championship winning coach, former coach in Granville. So it'll be interesting to see what the Wolverines look like when they travel to Voorheesville Saturday to take on the Blackbirds. On the Vermont side of the border, Woodstock is at Poultney. Woodstock has had a very strong program over the years, and Poultney is kind of in a point right now where they're short on numbers. They're just trying to get through the season. I'm sure they're going to be looking under Coach Andrew Bredding to be better after last week's loss on the road at Spalding, but certainly another tough opponent coming in to Dean Houghton Field when the Blue Devils take on Woodstock this week. And also, Fairhaven is at Linden Institute. The Slaters losing 33-0 to the Hartford Hurricanes last week. They're going to try to bounce back on the road at Linden, but Linden should be a pretty tough opponent for Fairhaven, so we'll see how that one goes. And then, last but not least, I want to talk about this. So Corinth Hadley Luzerne did not have enough to field an 11-man football team this year, so they dropped off the schedule. And they are playing now 8-man football, and they will have their first game as an 8-man football team on Saturday. And they are traveling to a school named On Tech in Syracuse. So that's where they have to go to have an 8-man game. But kudos to the Corinth Hadley Luzerne administration as they're making sure, even though they didn't have enough to have a football team, these kids are still playing high school football. Do they have to go all the way to Syracuse for a game? Well, yes, they do. But they're keeping these kids playing high school football, and they're doing it on a Saturday, so it's not a late night, it's not a school night, and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how things go for Corinth Hadley Luzerne as they play 8-man football on Tech in Syracuse. That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of First and 10 here on NYVT Media Sports. We'll see everybody in Ravenna on Friday night for our game of the week as Ravenna Queeman Selkirk will host Averill Park in what should be a huge Section 2 Class D matchup. The Ravens also always tough in Class B, and the defending Class A champions, Averill Park, moving down to B this year. That should be a heck of a football game. We'll have kickoff live from Ravenna on Friday night at 7 o'clock here on NYVT Media Sports. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks for joining me for First and 10 and NYVT Media Sports. I'm Keith Harrington. So long, everybody.